bagpipes and drums going. 5, 8, quick, march.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jared Altick, and I'm a chaplain with the police department. The Hey Chaplain podcast brings you stories and wisdom about life and law enforcement, giving support and encouragement to those who wear the badge. Today I'm talking to Jim Higgins and Detective Rodney Ashley, who played the bagpipes in the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department pipe band. Jim is not a police officer, but he has taught bagpipes to police officers and played for them and with them for several years. Rodney, or RJ, who is a detective in the department, has been playing the bagpipes for 5 years, taught and coached along by Jim. In recent years, the two of them have been the bagpipers for the police department pipe band. A pipe band usually consists of pipers and a drum corps, typically snares, and a bass drum, which are also played by police officers, all of whom are dressed in full Scottish regalia. Today I asked Jim and RJ how they each got started playing this loud and unusual instrument. Listen to them describe the work and commitment it takes to bring this meaningful and dramatic element to ceremonies and parades of all kinds. And please forgive me for some of the audio quality. I had to chop up this interview quite a bit more than I typically would otherwise. Jim and RJ did great, but we picked up a lot of construction and crowd noise from inside the building where we were recording. I got rid of most of the noise and tried to smooth over the rough spots. Hopefully it won't take too much away from your listening experience. Here's Jim Higgins and Rodney Ashley. Let's compare and contrast how each of you got started on the bagpipes. And so, Jim, you're a professional. Tell me how you got started. How young were you? How did you get into this business?
I started when I was 10. I was in grade school, and my brother actually we had just moved back to Kansas City, and his friend was in the pipe band. He was learning how to play. He'd already been playing a couple of years, and they just asked us, and my mom being Scottish, everyone was fine with it, so we just went ahead and did it.
That might be a hard sell in some families.
It could be.
Yes.
A little different.
And this pipe band was where?
It's here in town, Kansas City, St. Andrew.
Okay, so you got involved, you had family involved, and you started. How old were you again?
I was 10. My brother was 9. So.
Okay. This then wasn't just a temporary hobby. You kept playing. And
yeah.
So tell me how that went for you. How did it progress and change and evolve over the years for you and your brother?
It just kind of the standard course. We were students. We learned all the band tunes and kind of got excited about it. And my brother went more into, he was a pipe major of the band. I became a pipe major of the band. He was an excellent player. He is an excellent player. He ran the band back in the 80s, and we achieved the highest level in pipe band contests, as well as him being the highest level in solos. So we were a grade 1 pipe band during the mid-80s. And then my turn came a couple years after that, and I was able to bring the band back up after it had kind of fallen off a little bit and came up into the grade 2 level. So it's a lot of fun to play at the upper levels.
Jim, when you learn at 10 years old, is the bagpipe an instrument that you can pick up as quickly as other instruments? I mean, a lot of children, in a matter of a few years, become pretty proficient. Is bagpipe similar in that regard?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much across the board. Any musical instrument, you're more inclined as a younger person to pick up things. There's just something about how you develop.
Sure.
A little harder for the adults, but there are plenty of examples of adults who have just slid right into it and picked it all up right and are good players.
How many people have you taught or coached over the years? Do you know?
I really have no idea. I ended up starting to teach early. I ended up starting at 14 to teach.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I couldn't even give you a wild guess.
Okay.
I just couldn't.
Have you taught a lot of cops and firefighters and such that have never played an instrument before?
Yeah, a lot of people don't play. It's probably 50-50. There's a lot of people that'll have experience playing something that helps because they kind of have that background, that general idea,
right?
What music is. So you don't have to go over that part of it again as far as conceptually understanding it. And any background you have in music helps.
Sure. Is there anybody that's ever been unteachable? Like you just couldn't get it through to them at all?
Yeah, there's always some people, and they usually will give it a couple of months and then they just disappear.
Yeah,
kind of a thing. There's a lot of attrition in bagpiping.
Oh, I bet so. Now, Jim, you've got decades of experience, but Detective Ashley, RJ, how long have you been playing?
Well, 2016 is when I had the opportunity to put in for the position through the department, and that's when I kind of started at that time.
Okay. Had you ever played an instrument before?
I played the piano back when I was, I think, kindergarten or first grade, but I went to 2 practices, and I said, this isn't for me, and I quit. So that is the extent of my musical background.
If you'd only known, you would want to be playing bagpipes all these years later.
Right.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what was it like for you? Before I get to that, let me ask, how did you get to where you wanted to pursue this?
So I'd say prior to getting on the department, the only time that I ever heard bagpipes was obviously at your St. Patrick's Day, parade. And I thought it was exciting. It was cool to watch the players come through the streets, as Mr. Higgins over here. And then I'd say back when I was in the academy, 2 of my academy instructors were playing at that time. And I remember coming up to graduation day, how excited I was about A, to finally be done with academy, and then B, to actually hear the pipe and drums playing for us when we marched in.
Yeah.
And just the sound of that, it was a great experience. I really enjoyed listening to it. And then I think in 2012, I ended up, when I got married, I had asked one of the bagpipers to play at our wedding. And so he did. And he gave me a CD the day of our wedding. I was like, hey, if you ever thought about playing, listen to this music and give it some thought. But I never thought that I would be that guy playing bagpipes. I never thought that I could even achieve that. And then fast forward to a couple years, I worked with one of the bagpipers at the time. And, on his lunch break, he was sitting there playing the practice chanter is what we call it. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, And he told me then, if you ever thought about playing, you should at least give it a shot and see what you think. Okay. 2016 is when the spot became available. And I put in for it, and I was kind of hesitant whether or not I wanted to because I've never played an instrument before. And then, to actually get in front of a large amount or a large crowd and to actually play the instrument, that's a lot.
What was it like the first time you picked it up and held it the first time?
The bagpipe?
Yeah.
It was pretty interesting because I didn't have my own set at the time, and Jim had given me, I think we called them like Frankenpipes, because they were just, pieces from like 2 or 3 different bagpipes put together.
Nothing matches. Yeah.
Right. And I didn't have the actual chanter in the bagpipe at the time. I was just trying to strike into the bags to get enough air to get the drones so you could get that sound going. Uh-huh. And the first time I did that, I remember going up and down my street just listening to it, thinking that was the coolest thing ever, when everyone else is probably thinking, what is he doing over there?
Yeah, the department's getting noise complaints.
Yeah. Yeah. But I remember the first time I think that I got my own set of bagpipes was at headquarters, and I remember striking into the bag, and I think I probably tried to play Wings, which is one of the tunes that we play. Okay. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know how I'm going to do it because I was so winded, within the first couple seconds. I mean, it's crazy. Right.
And so how long did it take you from first starting to the point where you felt like, okay, I'm proficient, I can get through a song with the help of other people? I mean, what was the time frame there? Was that weeks, months? What was it?
I don't really remember. By the time that we got the bagpipes, I think it was probably a year. Was that right?
Maybe a little less, but yeah.
8 months, 9 months, I think, before we did our first performance.
Right.
And I've got a story about that too.
Okay. Tell me about it.
So we got invited to play for the CIT National Conference. I think it was Kansas City, Missouri Police Department had invited our honor guard to present colors, and then they wanted the band there as well. So it was the first event ever played, and I was a little nervous when I got there, and I was like, I'll be fine, no big deal. And literally right before we were getting ready to go on stage or in front of the crowd, I told Jim, I said, hey, I forgot the tune. I literally forgot. And I looked at everyone and in panic. I'm sure I was like a deer in the headlights where my eyes are just like this, like, I don't know what I'm going to do, don't know what I'm going to do. It ended up being all right, but it's a funny story because Jim had to, slap me in the head and say, "Hey, you know what you're doing. Just play. You know the tune. Just play."
Okay. Jim, arrangement-wise, are they playing in unison? Or are they playing parts? Is there like a first chair pipes and a second chair? How does that work?
No, there's no chairs. There are parts, and it's generally harmonies. You can have one set of harmonies and a second set of harmonies. They call them seconds and thirds.
Okay.
That complement the melody line. And most people in the band will play the melody. And then depending on the size of the group, for the sound balance, you'll have one or two playing each of the harmony parts.
Right. Well, what my question I'm leading up to is if you had a group of pipers and one of them just hit the panic button and was pantomiming, could they fake their way through, just march along and
Yeah, you just
they could maybe fly under the radar as far as everybody else knew.
I've done it.
Yeah, you just keep the pressure up to where you're playing, but you drop it enough to your chanter drops out and doesn't sound, so you hear the drones.
Right.
And nobody can really tell unless you're not cutting out and you're just playing random notes. And
You can tell,
I can tell. Yeah.
but the rest of us listening on the sideline, we don't hear it.
Right.
That's awesome. Jim, you and your brother also do more than just play. You also, help with the whole get up. Can you describe what you guys do now?
Sure. My brother started a Scottish mail order business back in the early 80s, and I joined it in the late 80s, and I'm a reed maker as well. So it's just developed into a kind of a local manufacturing. We bring in the tartan fabrics and we make the kilts. We also make a lot of the different jackets, and we import a lot of the accessories, all the different parts of the outfit. So we don't make everything, but we do make some of the cloth goods.
And you sell to people all over the world or all over the country? Is it regional? How big?
They're just marketplace-wise, it's mostly American, but we sell everywhere, all over the world. We have people from really just everywhere in the nation.
Okay.
Especially a lot of servicemen are in Japan or various other countries. So.
Right. And that's jhiggins.net.
That's correct.
Where I go to find all my needs for
anything
tartans
Scottish
and reeds and that kind of stuff.
Correct.
all my Scottish needs at jhiggins.net.
Anything
we
you
can do a
could
commercial
want.
for you. Yeah, there we go.
Good. Sounds great.
That's awesome. So, what songs am I hearing? I mean, obviously, I've heard "Amazing Grace," but there's another tune that I hear a lot. In fact, you sent me a sample of it. What is the name of that tune?
So the first tune that you're hearing is Wings, and then going into Rowan Tree. And I'd say those are probably two of the most common songs played.
And Wings and Rowan Tree are two different tunes that are played together, like one after the other, or? Okay.
Correct.
What else do you have in your repertoire? Is there like a really lengthy list, or is it just like, well, we always play the same three tunes? I mean, how does it work?
Well, it generally works as to whatever group's there, whatever they all know, kind of a thing. But RJ has been playing long enough where he has quite a few tunes and can play several slow airs and several other marches, and he's working on additional material all the time. Okay.
When the pipes and drums are asked to participate in a ceremony, how does that work as far as what songs you end up playing? I'm sure there are things that are traditional, that it's just expected, and the people asking you to come perform may not even know what those are. They just have this expectation in their head. Do you ever get requests like, oh, we want something specific played, maybe at a funeral? How does that work? Who decides that?
Most of the time for the events that we play, it's, occasionally we'll get the request for Going Home, Amazing Grace. Those are probably the two most common tunes that are requested. And most of the other time, they leave it up to us to play whatever we want to. Okay. They leave it up to us, say, you play what you want coming in, whatever you're comfortable with, and that's pretty much it. Now, on the other hand, for Jim, he gets requests all the time.
Yeah, people have requested anything from the Notre Dame fight song to patriotic tunes, stuff that doesn't even fit on the bagpipe scale.
Right.
I mean, it's amazing how many different requests you can get for different things. Some of it works out and some of it doesn't.
Right. I mean, have you ever had to just say, sorry, that's just not doable on this instrument? Or?
Oh, sure. Yeah. People will say, I can't even think of an example, but yeah, I mean, if it doesn't fit, it's a nine note scale and it's a fixed key. And some things are just so far out of that it just doesn't even sound like the tune. I mean, little bits of it do, but
Yeah. It'd be hard to accomplish.
yeah.
Within the parameters of what the pipes can do. Sure. Okay. When you're going through these songs, it takes a certain amount of time to learn that, because you guys don't operate with sheet music in front of you. You're doing this, I presume, entirely by memory. And so how long does it take to get the drums and the pipes and everybody on board? I mean, is there like a lot of practice? Is it, hey, everybody go home, work on this on your own, we'll get together and we'll sort it out? Or is it kind of a mix?
For me personally, it takes about a good solid month to try and get the tune memorized. I have to break down each note and try to play it over and over and over again, and then hopefully by then it's muscle memory.
Okay.
Now, getting it to sound good on the pipes, that's another story. I'm not sure as far as the drummers go how long it takes them, because I think most of their scores, or if we're doing marches, is 4/4 right, so that's the same beat regardless of the tune.
Right. It's just a generic score for all 4/4 marches or all 3/4 marches.
Okay.
So they have a little easier road in that regard.
Sure.
If they just have to know what time signature we're playing, and then they play a...
And presuming they can keep time, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
Drummers, that's a good thing for a drummer. Keep time.
They can be prerequisite, but sometimes not every drummer is built the same way. Yeah.
But it takes time. If I took a month off from playing the bagpipes and I had a performance that I had to do, let's say in 2 months from now, I would be winded. There might be a couple notes that are off. It's something that, for me personally, that I have to do every day.
But to build the stamina.
And then even on the practice channel where it doesn't require all that amount of blowing. I mean, just to have I don't know what the proper term is, the technique down.
Right.
I mean, it's a daily thing.
Huh. Okay, so the Kansas Police Department has how many people involved with pipes and drums right now?
Right now we have 2 up-and-coming pipers. We have 1 snare, 1 bass, and then when we get the 2 other pipers up and running, we'll have a total of 3 bagpipers, 2 snares, 1 bass.
Okay. And you'd like to have more if
Correct.
that were, if it was a perfect world, but that's what you're working with right now. But I've also been at fire department events, and do you ever help that group, or is that a completely different?
It's a completely separate pipe band, but at the same time, we help each other out. If we're available to help out, we will. Same thing goes for them. We've asked them to play with us. We've used them in St. Patrick's Day's parades. Well, we've used the 1 bass for the St. Patty's Day parade. I think it was in 2019.
Yeah. And in fact, we were going to be in the first parade that was called off.
Yeah,
As a group, as a unit, a mixed unit, fire and police.
Yeah, KCK PD, KCK Fire. We were all going to be 1 unit playing for St. Patty's Day until it got postponed or canceled because of COVID. We played at firemen's funerals.
Right.
They played at police funerals as well.
Okay. So if I'm at a fire event or a police event, I'm not necessarily just seeing people from that department. It might be other departments helping. It might be a mixed unit, perhaps.
Yes.
It might be purely that department. It may be mixed. Could be either way.
Correct.
How do you go about recruiting for more? We've talked about, we'd like to have a larger number. How do you get people to get on board with this? I gotta imagine there's people that just shy away from it. They just don't. They've never pictured themselves doing it. How do you recruit?
Basically, if they have an interest in doing it, we just reach out to them. And, Jim is nice enough to say, hey, bring them, see if they want to practice, because it's good to introduce them this way versus putting in for the position. And then once they figure it out, oh, it's not for me, and then just totally not doing it. Mm-hmm. So I'd say come and practice, see if it's for them, see if they enjoy doing it, because it's time consuming. It's not something that you can just pick up for 30 minutes once a week. I mean, it's repetitive each day.
Keep practicing, keep building that ability.
Right. I don't think a lot of people understand that.
Sure.
I mean, I personally, I've taken the chainer on vacations, when it's family vacations, and I might be outside with a cup of coffee sitting there practicing or looking at sheet music. So it's a big commitment.
Right. It would seem like it would help if you had an officer that had a musical background. Boy, it seems like the entry for them, the entry cost would be less, just as far as the amount of time spent absorbing that. I mean, whatever instrument they had played before, seems like they should be able to get acquainted with all the ins and outs of the pipes a little bit easier. Do you think that's true, Jim?
Understanding music, I think it definitely helps in that regard. The pipes are kind of an unusual instrument in the sense that there's, like RJ said, you start on a practice channel and you learn the technique, the fingering, and the music.
Is there any instrument that's helpful? Like, oh, they had a background in bassoon, or something. Is there anything that's particularly helpful?
Yeah, I think anything where you're playing clarinet, bassoon, anything that has multiple. Yeah. It's the same concept. And again, getting over how to read music and what the notes and the dots and the cuts all mean.
Yes. Yeah.
You if you know that already, then you're starting at a higher place of general knowledge. But the bagpipe itself, we always call the practice chanter the toy, and the actual bagpipes is the instrument that you're aspiring to learn how to play. And once you graduate to that, there's a whole nother aspect of it, the physicalness, the technique of creating a steady sound, the endurance involved in actually being able to play for a decent amount of time, and then the techniques of learning how to tune it, because you have 4 different reeds going continuously.
Right.
So it's just a different animal.
Yeah.
And it's just a whole different level of, so once you think you've got things figured out in the practice chanter, and then they hand you this 4-reeded thing, and you got to throw it up under your arm and figure out how to wrestle it into submission. So
that's fascinating. Yeah. So the bagpipes have a history that goes back to the British Isles, and not everybody has a Scottish background. So why should police departments and fire departments continue to have this thing? It's kind of a throwback to the past. What's your best pitch? I mean, why should departments have this?
It's a community engagement. There's been requests to play at graduation ceremonies. This coming Thursday, we're getting ready to play at the University of Kansas for the World War II, at the World War II Memorial for Veterans Day. So it's things like that.
Yeah. Boy Scout ceremonies.
Yeah, Boy Scout ceremonies. We played for them.
Yeah. And weddings and funerals and
St. Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's Day. And what else am I missing, Jim? I mean,
any parade.
Yeah, any parade, right? Yeah. That's fantastic.
I think it's such a tradition that should always be there, because, most of the time when you hear the bagpipes, it's played at funerals or ceremonies. I mean, it's a way to honor and show respect, for the fallen.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of Irish history on the East Coast, and that's probably where it mainly comes from as far as America.
Yeah. Oh, yes. We had large wave of immigration from Ireland and Scotland and really all of Europe during the 1800s into the early 1900s. And a lot of Irish and Scottish immigrants went into fire departments, police departments, and they brought that music with them to the funerals, I believe, first. And then it kind of spread from there to the other ceremonies. And it is traditional, even if there's nobody on the department that has Scottish heritage, there's still a connection to all of the tradition of people who have served and have put their life on the line to run into a burning building or to catch the bad guys or whatever the job may be. They've been willing to put themselves at risk for the sake of others. And there's a nobleness to that. There's an ancient heritage, a tradition to that, and pulling out some things that are not just contemporary to us, but reach back to previous generations. I think that's a powerful sound. And the bagpipes are such a unique sound that I feel like they kind of carry that in a way that other instruments don't do. It's a really powerful thing. Do you think there's a minimum size to a department?
No, because even you might have, a 300 sworn department or a 200 sworn department, and there may be only that one piper.
Right.
So,
right.
I'd say the more the merrier, but if that's all that they have to give, that's fine.
And departments like in rural settings could share, couldn't they? I mean, there's not, you would think that they could work together and kind of collaborate, and you've got the drummers with the sheriff's office and the pipers from the fire department, and
sure,
you could all collaborate probably, I'd imagine.
And it's no different than here, because we do. I mean, we might get a couple from the fire department. There might be a couple from Topeka. There might be some from down in southern Missouri playing with us.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
One thing I'd mention as far as sharing and all, I mean, before any of the groups had their own pipers and stuff, when I was a young kid, we used to go down on Memorial Day in Casey Mo and play their Memorial Day service every year, and it was our full band. So, okay. I mean, they used, I think, you can use what's available, even the quote-unquote civilian bands in the area, and you saw a lot of that in the past.
Right.
So it's nice to have your own in-house stuff, but I think the idea of having that as part of the ceremony is, that they were willing to go out just to the regular population, see if there were players or bands in the area to do that.
Sure. If someone is listening to this and saying, okay, we need to get that started in our city, Jim, how should they begin? Where do they go to get a bagpipe, to get lessons, to get involved? I mean, should they find a department that's already doing it and try to learn from them? I mean, how should that start?
General search. I mean, like I said, if there's a civilian pipe band in the area, or if there's another police department that's close, or even if it's not close, and they also have Skype lessons, or you can do things over the internet.
Oh, sure.
There's a lot of people that teach. We have people here in town who do that. Yeah. To students who aren't in the area. So technology has really allowed a lot more to happen than used to be the case when I was growing up. You had to go someplace and have a person actually work with you.
Yeah, now you could do that over Zoom or Skype.
You can be taught by someone on the other side of the planet.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great idea. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate you talking to me about pipes and drums and how that works. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
And if you mention this code, Jim Higgins, for the next month, you get 20% off his website.
Nice. My brother's going to kill you.
That's awesome. Okay. RJ's coupon code is not a real thing. Do not try to use that. But I do want to give the J. Higgins store a little free publicity. jhiggins.net, that's JHIGGINS.net. They make reeds and kilts and sell everything you would need for a pipe band, from uniforms to instruments. Without Jim's support, teaching, and participation, I don't know where the pipe band in Kansas City would be now. So, thank you guys for your contributions over the years to the law enforcement community. I have to admit that before becoming a chaplain, I was not a fan of the bagpipes, and I had never really given any thought about how much the pipes and drums added to the atmosphere of a ceremony. Now, after being in several different memorials, funerals, promotions, and police graduations, I feel like having the honor guard post the colors without the pipes and drums would be like having a military funeral without playing taps. The music just brings it to a completely different level. And the bagpipes and snares specifically, they demand your attention. You can't talk over them. They say, you will be quiet, and you will give this ceremony your full attention, and you'll do it right now. So, when we're talking about a job where men and women risk their lives and sometimes have to give their lives, I don't think that's too much to ask. If you like what you heard here, please share this episode with a cop or someone who loves a cop. On the next episode of Hey Chaplain.
As a police officer, I barely knew. Some departments I worked for had no chaplains. If they did, we didn't know who they were. They might put it on their bio at their church, their synagogue, their mosque, their temple.
Right.
That seems real common. I'm a police or fire chaplain. Then if you ask the police or fire department,
they don't know who that is.
They are.
Right.
And they jump at and if they do, it's like, oh, that's the guy or girl that just comes to the station to talk to the captain, the major, or the chief and have breakfast with them. Or shows up at holiday events to pray, or when you call them because you do want them for something in the community, they're not available because they're too busy because they're a full-time clergy.
Right.
Or if you show up for a critical incident for a cop, but you have not developed a relationship ahead of time, this doesn't matter if you're the psych, peer support, or the chaplain, they're not talking to you. Their real peer support is going to come from their squad or their team or who they work in the trenches with.
People who have rapport. Yeah, not strangers. The views expressed here are the personal views of the hosts and our guests and do not necessarily represent the views of any law enforcement agency or its components. Thank you for listening today, and as always, pray for peace in our city.